This verdict just coming in that David Boyd has been found guilty of the murder of 7-year-old schoolgirl Nikki Allan. This was a crime that shook the community in Sunderland 31 years ago and has remained a mystery, unsolved for more than 3 decades. But then a jury here at Newcastle Crown Court taking what little over a couple of hours to determine that David Boyd was guilty of the 7-year-old's murder. Inside court, there's been an enormous reaction from the public gallery where Nikki Allan's family have been attending court over the past few days. Apparently they were shouting at David Boyd. For her family, for Nikki Allan's family, they described to me when I spoke with them yesterday that this trial has been utter torture after 30 years of uncertainty and mystery over what happened to little Nikki Allan when she left her home in Sunderland in 1992 and was never seen again. Her body was found by a neighbour the next morning. It had been brutally beaten and she had been stabbed multiple times. And although police hunted for her killer, and in fact one man was tried in 1993, but then that was later acquitted, the family have had so little information, so little hope and so little clue as to what happened to Nikki Allan that day. But police, using DNA technology that simply didn't exist when Nikki Allan died more than 30 years ago, used that in this case to match genetic material found on Nikki Allan's clothes. She was wearing at the time a purple coat and black leggings, and the police investigation painstakingly looked and re-examined the evidence in this case, found traces of genetic material, and then were able to match them to David Boyd. And that really was the crucial piece of evidence in this case that led to David Boyd's arrest, first in 2018, but then latterly, and then to his eventual conviction today. Just having a little look behind me, you can hear a woman shouting justice. And in fact, these are members of Nikki Allan's family. As I said, I spoke to her mother, Sharon, yesterday. She has been fighting to try and keep Nikki Allan's case in the public eye for as long as possible. She called for the police to keep on re-examining evidence, and that is something which they did do, and in 2016 reopened the case with a new investigating team, and as I said, using that new technology to try and determine exactly what happened to Nikki Allan. And in the end, David Boyd was found guilty of Nikki Allan's murder. He was a man that lived on the same estate as Nikki Allan's family and was actually dating her babysitter. And on the night that Nikki Allan disappeared, there were many witnesses who saw Nikki Allan outside the flats where she lived, and one witness even saw a young man with a young girl who they believed to be Nikki Allan following him along the street. And the police composite sketch from that time, from 1992, was shown in court. The prosecution doing a split screen with that composite sketch and of David Boyd. As he looked at the time, he was a man in his 20s, said that the likeness was undeniable, and in the end the jury agreed with that, finding David Boyd guilty after more than 3 decades of a crime which has shocked the community and has haunted Nikki Allan's family for 31 years.
And Katerina, from the reports you're getting from the court, any reaction from the man found guilty of that crime, David Thomas Boyd? He's obviously had 30 years, thinking perhaps that he might have got away with it. Was there a sense of a reaction from him?
Not that we're hearing. Very much the reaction that we have heard from our teams inside the courtroom has come from the family members of Nikki Allan. Screams of "yes, come on," shouts of thanks to the jury, who took just a couple of hours after 30 years of uncertainty for this family. Just a few hours. They only left, the judge only finished summing up at around 12 o'clock today. And what are we now at? Coming up to 3 o'clock. So just 3 hours after 3 decades of uncertainty for Nikki Allan's family. Everyone in the public gallery stood up, according to our teams, which were inside, and some of them even leaned over the divider, the dividing line, the dividing bar between the public gallery and where David Boyd was sat in the defendant's box, to shout at him. The sentencing we've just heard is going to come on the 23rd of May, finally a sense of justice for Nikki Allan's family after so many years of uncertainty.
Spoken to her family, to her mother, yesterday about this case. Of course, we didn't have the result at that point. There wasn't a verdict. But for her mother, do you think there will have been a sense of closure today, if that is something that can be achieved?
She said to us that the trial has been absolute torture, that she has felt that she has had to fight over the last 30 years for the police to keep this case in the public eye. Some more relatives of Nikki Allan coming out now. I believe that's actually her sister, one of her sisters. She had an older sister and two younger sisters, and like I said, we've been speaking with her mother, Sharon. I don't know if you can hear what one of Nikki Allan's sisters is saying there. You can hear what she's saying. So she was saying that for justice, how long they've been waiting for it, and that is absolutely the sense we got from Nikki's mother yesterday, that she had to feel like she had to continually put the pressure on to keep this investigation in the public eye. And she said something incredibly moving to us, that she has felt like this has been her fight over the past 30 years. And if David Boyd was found convicted today, she said it would at least mean that her children and her grandchildren wouldn't have to carry on that same fight for justice. And of course, there was a huge sense of frustration from Sharon Henderson that the man in the end that's been found guilty of her daughter's murder was a man who lived just 3 doors down from Nikki Allan's grandparents' house, where she had been staying that evening, that it was a man who was known to her, known to the family, had been dating Nikki's babysitter, and indeed was a man that she felt, when the composite sketch from 1992 was shown in court, bore such a strong resemblance to how David Boyd looked at the time. She feels really frustrated that it has taken such a huge volume, 3 decades, even more, 31 decades for this day to come, as you just heard her sister saying there, for a sense of justice to be delivered.